Hello and welcome to Unexplained Possibilities Podcast. I'm your host, Melvin the Crimson Taurus. Now, this is a little weird because I know it was supposed to be Ladies Night, but it's not quite Ladies Night. And I know you see Neima on the thumbnail and you get me. And the reason for this is because all my mics, they just completely went out. I'm using a webcam mic and it's just I absolutely hate it. I don't know when I'm going to get replacements. So Niema was supposed to handle tonight. It was like, all right, we can do it. But some stuff came up with her and I had to tag back in and you guys don't care about that anyway. No, no, no. You see the names in the title. That's what you care about. That's what you come for. The real ladies, not me. So let's introduce them, shall we? Ladies, what do you think? Should I introduce you?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So I am very, very happy to have joining me, especially on such short notice, three amazing women who I've luckily enough gotten to know. And first, let's oh my gosh, you see, this is why I write all my intros out. Anyway, first let's introduce the owner of Belladonna Botanicals, the multicolored sexy vixen herself, Miss Jennifer Vatza.
Hello.
And right after Jennifer, we have a spunky, kind of crazy, but always lovable and huggable Kayla Mavrakis.
Hello.
And last but certainly not least, the brains behind the operation. She'll curse you, give you a hug, and pick your head. Freud would just orgasm at the very thought. Please welcome Scarlett Bales.
Hi.
So, how are you ladies doing tonight?
Good. Ready to shoot the shit and see what's everybody thinking and talking and doing? Because I haven't seen these ladies and yourself for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
yeah. So
It
I
has. I'm excited.
I really do appreciate you guys coming on in such short notice. I think it was like a day of me asking, so I very much appreciate it. And oh boy, it it's been a month. Let me ask you: does anyone who studies astrology or anything like that, do you guys know if this was just supposed to be an off month for everyone?
Yes, it's it just Mercury retrograde just went into place, and I think it doesn't stop until September. It's a
No, I
long.
think it starts in September. I think it ended
it?
the Mercury retrograde ended, I think, around my birthday, which was June 3rd. So the
Okay.
next one I think starts in September because I know it ended like the end of May because there was a full moon also on my birthday.
Hmm.
Uh, whatever.
Um, Planetary, I think it was a dark moon. I think for the full moon or the new moon was a dark moon. So that kind of I don't know. Whatever's wrong, I just blame it on planets and lunar cycles at this point in time. I'm just like, it ain't me. Some planet is making me sad. Usually it's just Earth. We fuck.
Sounds about right. So, whatever it was, it's bent me over this month, and I don't want it anymore. Just no more. Um, but whatever, no one cares about that. What we care about is talking magic, talking the occult, talking psychology, talking about any and everything but our problems. Although I'm going to start off with some problems. So, Jennifer, I know that recently you had to deal with an imposter of sorts, huh? Right? Wasn't there someone who was, maybe it wasn't an imposter, but it was someone who was taking your products and
Oh, the
reselling them?
dropship scammer. Yeah, that was back like I think the end of January and into February.
Oh, Jesus
Um,
Christ, where's my head at? Good Lord.
this year's gone really fast, so it was just kind of um yeah, like you can have drop shipping companies, which basically is kind of like, I mean, in a lot of ways, like when I was selling stuff through Become a Living God, it was kind of like we had sort of a drop ship um deal with that. someone would order from their website, they'd let me know, I'd ship it, they'd pay me. That's how you run like a drop shipping kind of company. There's a lot of companies that do that. Generally speaking, they ask you, you have, contracts and deals and stuff with this. This guy just went and screen scraped a whole bunch of stuff from different Etsy store, a lot like all these big occult creators. So something I would charge, say, $25 for, he had it on his website for $100. And it's not like he bought any of these things either. So what he would do is sort of sneaky buy it as a gift through our Etsy shop, and just we do all the work and all the stuff, and then he just pocket the money. Only he never asked permission for this, and given the grifty kind of scam, I didn't want my brand associated with that, and nor did any of the other ones. So, and that he went and took our copyrighted images and text and everything from our listings. So it was not very hard to file DMCA, claim takedowns, because the shop was through my Shopify. And he no longer has a shop on my Shopify. So I assume he had enough DMCA claim takedown notices to have his shop removed. So,
Okay.
yeah. Winning.
Well, what a wiener. And one of the reasons why I bring this up is because in the occult community, good Lord, we see a lot of talk about people saying, oh, we're going to get even. I'm going to curse you. Whoever did me wrong, you're going to get hexed, or this and that. And is that always a good thing? Is it actually possible to do a little hoodoo or voodoo and hex someone like that? And is it morally correct to do that, or should we just have the universe come in and do its thing, if at all possible?
I mean, I think I took care of it all by mundane means at that point.
So you became karma.
Yeah, karma incarnate.
What do you think, Scarlett?
Well, I think it's just where people are in their journey. And, if it's something that's affecting you, then it's coming to your path, it's coming to your lane, then you deal with it. But if it's not in your lane, then you have a choice to deal with it or not. But yeah, I mean, is it possible? Anything's possible. If you try to put a limit on something like that, then what's the difference of putting a limit on anything else that you do in magic? So
Okay.
it really is, I would think, up to how the person is directing their anger. And if it is genuine at a person, because in my experience, that when a person seems like they get mad so quickly, it's probably because they're already angry. They're probably already at a baseline anger all the time. So what we would perceive as somebody flying off the handle, yelling and screaming how they're going to curse somebody, that may be a low tide reaction for that particular person. So do I think it's going to work? I don't know. It depends upon how much dedication that person has to that immediate need and curse. Do they blow it off a lot of times? Yes. I don't know. Yes. No. I don't know. It could work. It could fail. But
Depends.
it's like how much power is going to be in it. You're always, if that becomes your routine.
Yeah, and I think some people spend so much time cursing that they end up cursing themselves.
Well, I think that a person, if they're spending that much time cursing, then it's not that they end up cursing themselves, it's that they're living inside their own paradox of a curse. Because if a person is constantly getting that angry at somebody, then either you get rid of that person or you end that relationship. But if it's everybody in the world, then it's probably something a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Kayla, what are your thoughts?
I think in Jen's situation, I mean, that's definitely something that's like worthy over cursing. Me personally, it takes a lot for me to do that to somebody. And most people like Jen don't have time to do that. Most of us are working, we have little businesses we're trying to run on the side. Me personally, I've found over the years, because I'm devotional, like I have, certain spirits that I just continuously give offerings to. I don't really ask for anything anymore. So with that being said, like typically when people really screw me over, I don't even have to do anything. Like I just kind of watch from the sidelines, and I feel like my spirits kind of take care of it on their own, you know?
But
Yeah,
there's those occasional times, though,
Yeah.
and it's just an extra dig. And, you know, I kind of look at cursing more as a way of pulling it out of myself more than the destruction of the other person. I feel that if that person has come into my life and they've betrayed me that much, then their life is meant to go in a downward spiral as it is, just like what Kayla was saying. You know, it's gonna come. If you get me into that emotional upset like that much, then that is gonna be discharged. And that anger, that passion, and that betrayal gets discharged, and it gets taken up by the four that watch over us, and then I hand it over. I give them that, and I have them take it, and then I let them do what they will with it. So if it's in that person's journey to come into my path and betray me, it's so that can be dealt a hand of cards that's on your journey, then so be it. That person comes into my life and they become exalted because of our working relationship, and they feel, and that's their journey. But when somebody hurts you or somebody threatens you, you have to look at it and go, what's the lesson in it for me?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I do think there are things though that do warrant like magical acts, but I mean not in a situation like that, but
No. I mean, but I think people that have gotten to a certain level in their practice, that the common answer you'll find is, have I ever cursed anybody? Yeah. Do I do it a lot? No.
Yeah.
Do I have to? No.
Yeah, one of the things I found that was good for maybe not so much cursing, but like return to sender stuff is creating a servitor. So, I mean, not for nothing in the occult community, especially this part of it, you know, you've got a lot of people who will throw stuff at you to try to affect, you know, your business or stuff like that, or your reputation and whatnot. So, I mean, I did this after the scammer guy. I was kind of like, all right, anyone who is putting anything against me that has the potential to impact me financially or my business, I created a servitor to take care of that.
Yeah, you sound like a mob boss there. Hey, Tony, go take care of it.
Well, basically it is. It's my little henchman thug servitor. I mean, basically with that is you kind of, you know, it's something that's kind of like in the background patrolling for those specific types of curses and things. So it's like I don't have to kind of, you know, be second guessing and thinking someone's cursing me. This is just kind of taking care of it.
Well, you know, that's interesting you say that with the second guessing or think that someone's cursing you. I've noticed that usually people who haven't done anything to anyone, they're not guilty or nothing, they never worry about getting cursed or hexed or something sent on them. It's the ones who are guilty of something, the ones that did something they know they should not have done, and now they're worried about the retribution. And most people, I'm not saying you did something, Jennifer, but
that's the paradox of living inside your own curse.
But yeah, so it's very interesting because sometimes you can just like mess with someone by not doing anything. I mean, they do say best revenge is just living your best life. You know, like you don't bother me. You're insignificant. You're an ant turd. So, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to live my best life somewhere else because, oh my God, my neighborhood is driving me crazy. Like, if you notice me looking down, I'm checking my phone to see when the severe storms are coming in because that means everyone else will shut the fuck up. Because I had neighbors who I'm like, can you not read the room? No one else is out on their porch yelling, just having loud conversation, you know?
I very much understand. I
pointed out to them, I'm like, dudes, I'm like, my sofa is right there. You're literally yelling 3 feet from my head, you know? Shut up.
Oh gosh, I understand. This past
I'm glad
week.
it down that one time. It's just like I have to constantly have like the TV on. I had to actually I had to flip flop everything in my living room to put the TV in front of the window to just block out the noise.
No, this past week for me, they were playing this god awful music. Doom, 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 doom.
I know that one.
You want to see me go crazy? Play that for 7 hours straight. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm already
I get
losing
that
my hair, so it's just if I could pull out more.
Reggae man on the corner, or reggae whoever on the corner. I'm like, I don't mind reggae music, but I'm like, have I just never noticed that all reggae music sounds the same, or do you just only own like 2 reggae albums?
Good question. So,
You know.
uh, now this is something that I've wondered about because a lot of people in the community they work with several spirits, deities, gods, goddesses. I don't know what they want to be called, so I'll just say anything that pops into my head. And uh, Belial seems to be a reoccurring name. He pops up a lot. Have any of you worked with Belial?
Oh no.
All of you have? Or
Yeah.
okay. Now, the reason I ask that is
I will
because
not make any Last Frontier Medium jokes.
this isn't going anywhere near her. The reason I ask is because I've seen horror stories about Belial saying like, "Oh, he's gonna be rough. He's gonna be hard to work with, and he's gonna, things are gonna go bad." And for me personally, I think I was speaking with Curtis and Bonnie about this. I think he popped up for me and was very respectful and nice, and nothing bad happened. If that were his case, so Scarlett, going to you first. Do you think that part of a spirit or a deity? What do I call them? First of all, what do they want to be called?
Call them whatever you want. I just call them an entity, just
Okay.
because, or call it a disembodied consciousness.
Okay. So do you think that these entities that people work with or see, communicate with, do you think part of them they reflect a part of us? Like if we think they're going to be big, bad, and scary, they show up big, bad, and scary.
It depends. For the most part, when you're first starting to work with them, that is typically the case because that's the expectation. And the reason why that is because as a person that's doing the evocation, you're putting your intention and you're giving that power over, and you're having to interpret that transformation, that manifestation of whatever it's using for the base, whether it's in a mirror or you're using incense smoke or you're using some other type of base for it to manifest in. So, yes, if you have an expectation of what an entity could look like, then that's totally what you could see, right? But not all the time. Sometimes they show up how the fuck they want to show up, and they don't care how you feel about it. So it really just depends upon the relationship and the entity.
I'm still waiting for Elizabeth Hurley. If that happens, putty in the hands. That's what I want. Just show up as Elizabeth Hurley. Uh, Kayla, what's your thoughts on it?
I like what Scarlett said a lot. I will say this much, like with Belial, like when I first started out with him, I was told those things like, oh, he's scary, he's this, he's that. So those were like my expectations. I've actually seen him twice in 2 different forms. And it took me like, I don't know, 5 years to put this together. But the first time I saw him, I was actually in LA, and I was pretty sick and kind of delusional at the point to where I had like a shared hallucination of him, however you say that word, to where me and my ex-partner both saw him in the room. I didn't know who he was at the time until like maybe last year. When I started working with him willingly, he showed up to me like in that armored suit. I would see him like, I always saw him in my shower when I was up to no good. You know what I'm saying? Like the things that I had arranged with him and stuff. What I was doing at that time was kind of counteracting why I was seeking his guidance. So I would just like see him there, like in his armored suit. And then the last time that I saw him was kind of when I finally got the lesson from him. And it was the same person that I saw when I was sick in LA before I ever did anything with witchcraft. And it was really eerie because I had made like a ritual chair for him when I lived in Florida. And I had painted his sigil on the chair. And I woke up when I was sleeping and I saw him sitting in the chair, like in human form, like smiling, almost like a sense of like approval, as if like I got like the lesson. So yes, it can be aggressive, but I do think that might be expectations that you subconsciously have going in.
But Belial is an aggressive force. Like, don't get that wrong. It's not.
Yeah.
No. And I'm agreeing with you, Kayla. But I'm just saying, like to Melvin, like don't get it twisted. Belial is an aggressive force. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about it.
Yeah. Well, to what you're saying, that's true. I just don't want to scare people off because I had gone back on something that I had said with him.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I heard his chains. And I
think people should be. I think people should be scared. I think people should be afraid when they work with these forces because these forces can be very dangerous. People talk about them like they're fucking pals.
Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent, but you know, it's
they're not your pals. They're not your pals. They are not your pals. Okay, they may come to you and they may enlighten you and they may, feel very protective. Absolutely. When you have a long relationship with these entities and you work in alliance with them over and over and over again, you get a working relationship. But don't get it twisted. Don't think that you don't absorb some of them just like they absorb some of you. That's why the tolerance happens, and that's why the relationships become so enamoring. Mm-hmm. Don't ever forget. Don't ever put it past the forces that we work on. The darker aspects of the spectrum can be extremely dangerous. Don't ever forget. Do not take their kindness as weakness, because they will turn around and they will smack you down and they will remind you just exactly who they really are.
That's where I think some of the people, when they talk about, oh, Belial's so hard to work with, I'm like, are you being a dumbass and not doing the work?
It's not a matter of being a dumbass or not, right?
But some people, I'm like, if you've been working with Belial for 10 years and haven't
like say that either,
learn the lesson,
you don't know what their journey is.
Right.
What we think is stupid to somebody, this is going to be a very important lesson, right? This is how we don't gatekeep. Mm-hmm. Because if the entity is calling you, it's not going to matter what anybody says. You're going to dabble. You're going to look. You're going to read. It's going to show up in your life.
Right. Absolutely.
But it's a matter of respect. Fear is a hardwired circuit in our biology. You can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of care. You can't get rid of rage. Mm-hmm. You can't get rid of these circuits. They're hard. You're born with them. These 7 circuits are hardwired into the biological system. You can't get rid of them. Now, you can realize that you can put them on a spectrum and understand them. And you can know that, they have they run on a spectrum. Emotions run on a spectrum, but you can't get rid of them. To get rid of them would be denying yourself something of the human experience. So, that's why we are working with these spirits. They want to know what the human experience is like. We want to know what their experience is like. Yeah. A matter of working together. We've been doing it for a long time, lifetime over lifetime over lifetime. So if Belial is showing up for somebody and he's showing up and showing up and showing up, but then there's no reason for you to be afraid, because you've already worked with him somewhere in your past, or life, or whatever. You have some type of soul connection. There's no reason to be afraid. The reason why you're afraid is because the frequency is unknown. It's different. It's not something that you felt in a long time. And it's the same way when you do evocation. When you start to do, or at least in my experience, I don't want to generalize. I don't want to say this is what you should be feeling. Because the fuck am I to say what you should be feeling? I don't let me tell you how it feels, right? Because it's all based off of my experience. But in my experience, when I do evocation and I can feel them coming and beginning to manifest it physically in my space, there is a fear that comes. That's how I know they're truly present and coming into a manifestation, because I can feel the fear. But once you allow that to come in and you drop the label of fear and just feel what that thing is that's coming, it's a different frequency. It's them. It's their frequency. It's like sitting in a dark closet and somebody opening up the door. You can be afraid of it, or I can know that's probably Nate. Right? So if I know it's Nate, then I'm going to sit in the darkest place in the house and go, come on, motherfucker, right? But if it's someone that I'm not sure of, I'm going to want to have we have to put the trust in there, and that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. So, if people are being dumb and, you want to you tell them something to guide them, and they don't take your advice, it's because it's not part of their journey right now. They can't hear it. They can't absorb it. So that solves.
I agree with it.
And when
Belial will put you in your place, if you need to be.
Belial will show you, you'll start getting angry at people and being like, what the fuck is your problem? Why are you so, you know what I'm saying? Like, you will start becoming aggressive with people because you won't be approval of what they're doing. But what the real lesson is looking, and why is this making me mad? Mm-hmm. Why is watching them do this offending me so much? That's what Belial does for you. He takes you into the hard road of the shadow work inside.
That makes sense there, because I kind of came to that sort of conclusion with the things that were making me really ragey all the time and angry, is that I realized certain people were consistently re-traumatizing me based on trauma responses I had in my life and we're dealing with and have been working through. And I realized, there's a simple solution to that. Close the door on those people. Get them out of your life.
Yeah, but then you have to do the healing after that. Because if not, then you're constantly going to get this.
But it was making that connection, and then, being like, okay, we can sit here having
what's the other end of that? What's the other end of that when you let go of the anger? Then he takes you into the other side of that, which is the suicide. Mm. So he takes you into the depths. He takes you into the darkest aspects, the most troubled portions, the wars of the self. Why he's seen as a general. He takes you into the darkest wars of the self. Mm-hmm. He tries to help you navigate through this battle. And if you listen and you really work with him in the depths and the ways that he can be worked with, and don't be afraid to see this part of yourself, then you can come out of that battle victorious.
Yeah, the fear and fearlessness thing is interesting, because I feel like, I'm trying to think of an instance in any time that I've been working with any of these entities that I've felt fear for anything. And I don't know, like, I think sometimes for me personally, like, that's why I was asking, like, can you break your fear barometer? Because I think there's part of me, and I'm aware of it, that is sort of can quasi-dangerously be fearless to a point that it could cause harm to myself.
That's dissociation.
Yeah. So, it's so I don't fear working with these entities, and I don't approach them from a place of fear, even when,
So then you limit your experience. You limit your experience. You limit your memory by eliminating one of the major elements that you need in order to create a memory, which is behaviors that come from that, the knowledge of whatever it was that happened, the affect, which is the emotion, and the bodily sensations.
It's not to say I don't have other bodily sensations. It's just fear doesn't really dominate them, I guess.
It doesn't have to. And but when it does, then whatever it is, then you have to learn to observe. Just observe it instead of allowing the mind to label it. And then that, instead of dissociating yourself from it and not feeling, then if you're able to step out of the river, as I call it, and observe what's happening in the nervous system, in the body, instead of allowing it to be labeled, then you'll get a much deeper and a much better, in my opinion, a much better experience when
I'll have to work with them on that, because it's, I don't think of, like, for me, the fearlessness part, I don't think of it in a dissociative sense. I think of it more of a, I mean, maybe it's just it's almost like peaceful in a way.
I don't know. You have to figure that out on your own.
The asteroid could hit in an hour. We could all be obliterated. I'm okay. I don't have any fear of that. I'm not going to run around being like, oh my God. You know, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to eat that jar of shrooms. I'm going to, you know, take my thing. I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. Like, I don't have a fear of that.
Yeah, see, I don't know. Like for me, like with Belial, like I didn't like rage out at people. Like I raged out at people who screwed me over and deserved it 100%. But like more so, like what our arrangement was him kind of keeping me accountable for myself. And one, like he can be a frightful spirit. You know, like I feel comfortable with him, but I also like to have like that scared aspect, because like I know at the end of the day, if I go back on my word with him, I don't think I have a second chance with him, you know. But I do think, unfortunately, he's like a trendy spirit. A lot of people want to work with him because he's like a king and everything like that. And that's how I started working with him too, you know. But I don't think it's necessarily healthy to want to jump into those spirits, because like for me personally, I jumped in with Belial, Lilith, and Pazuzu all at the same time, like not knowing what I was doing, got completely overwhelmed, but like just kept going through it, you know. I think that's a lot of the craziness we see on Facebook, like of the left-hand path. Like I love my magic, I love my spirits, but you know, sometimes I'm not proud to say I'm a part of the left-hand path community, because it's like a lot of it gets woo-woo. A lot of it gets woo-woo. There's a lot of like egotistical, oh, well, I work with this spirit. So like at the end of the day, if we're presenting ourselves on social media as witches and we're talking about these spirits, we represent them in a sense. So I think it's important to act eloquently. And I think that's a lot of the horror stories that we see or hear about, is people behaving like that. Like obviously, yeah, bad stuff's gonna happen to you. Like you can't sit there and say, oh, I'm the reincarnation of Lilith, or you know, this is my patron, and then act like a crazy person who needs to be mentalized, you know, like go to the 5150.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a catch-22, I think, because it's like, I think people should reach out to him, and I think we should work with him because he has a lot to offer. But I also think they need to be aware of what it is they're getting into and be able to actually handle it, you know?
Yeah, like usually the advice I give when people ask about working with spirits or how they're going to, you know, present themselves or how they're going to look or be. And in my experience, and maybe you've had similar or very different experiences, like I feel like for me, they manifest in two ways, like a combination of your lived experiences and your visual frame of reference towards things. So how they and based on your lived experience and your personality type, like I always feel like for me, Belial always has a lot of trickster energy for him. Like he will just show up as the most ridiculous random things sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, one of the times recently he showed up as Thing from the Addams Family. I'm like, why?
Really?
But why doesn't anybody just look him up and see what he does? Like, why can't if somebody is asking if they should work with Belial, then
I just meant in general, like with.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not commenting on what you just said, Jen. I'm just saying in general, like before, when people ask, right? People will come and ask, should I do this? And it's like, well, I don't know. What does he do? What is it about him that you're questioning? What is he going to do for you? Do you have a plan? Is there something you want to work on that he specializes in, right? It's another way of thinking about working with spirits in general. Look at them like a computer program, right? You're not going to go to one spirit and ask them to help you with something if their specialty is like growing oranges. right? You want to grow apples. Go to the spirit that grows the fucking apples, right? Or if a spirit is coming to me and they grow oranges, then what would an orange have anything to do with me in my life? Do I want to grow a fruit tree? Do I need more vitamin C in my life? Do I feel like I'm getting sick? Like what? Why is he coming into your life? Why are you asking somebody else what you should be doing on your path? Nobody should be asking anybody what they should be doing on their path, right? They should know what they want to do on their path. Because before the internet, what do? You go to the store, you get a book, you read a book, do some research.
We're old, so we know how that goes. But like, I know of it from being a business owner and stuff. Like the amount of questions I get, like they're so. I think it's there's such a new drive into the metaphysical, the occult, magic, witchcraft, that people don't know where to start in a lot of things.
Yes. What do you tell them?
A lot of hand holding, baby steps, and answering the same question over and over and over again.
And it shouldn't. What do you tell people when they come to you and they go, where should I start? What's the step number? What's a book? What's one book you would tell them to go read? I would tell them to go read Lords of the Left-Hand Path. You want to start on a left-hand path? Go read that.
The Black Arts is a really good one to start on.
Yeah, I'm like, whenever I get asked that, what's your favorite occult top 5 favorite occult books? I'm like, give me a category. I cannot.
Or go learn witchcraft. Go learn your basic witchcraft first. That's what I tell everybody to do. Go learn Wicca. Go read some Wicca books. Get the basics down. Learn what a tool is, why you do it, how to make it, why make it. Why make it over buy it? When can you buy it? Why don't you start with the simple things first? Why does everybody want to jump into working with spirits? That's an advanced thing. If you can't meditate and listen to your own body, this is why, oh God, okay, forget it. You guys are getting me. I'm getting myself on a rant, and I don't want.
Your point, though, Scarlett, I understand.
Okay.
But listen, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I understand what you're saying. But you also have to understand, too, there's people that get into this that just don't understand what you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll like reach out to somebody who they look up to, and then they'll follow their guidance and steps. And
I
mean, that's basically what happened to me.
Yeah. So why are they telling you? Why would they tell you that?
No, exactly.
Belial, right?
Exactly, but this is like 5 years ago, right? So it's all like water under the bridge, and I'm grateful for it, and I wouldn't go back.
Getting this advice,
huh?
I'm sorry. I'm talking over you, but I'm just really trying to talk with you. I'm listening.
It's okay. I didn't hear
what you said. I talk over you. We're just chatting, but yes, I agree with you, right? I'm not angry. I get passionate about it because I want people to be able to do this work because it's so enlightening. It's so healing, and it's so empowering to know that you have power that is just inside of yourself, right? Yeah. The first thing you need to do is you need to become embodied. You need to become embodied, which means that you need to get back into your body. You need to feel and work with those darker forces that you're afraid of in yourself, because really that's what it is. When you evoke a demon, you're afraid to see its image. It's because you're afraid to even look inside yourself. Because if you go into a ritual thinking this thing is going to manifest however I think in the moment, right? Like Ghostbusters and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Well, then that means you're not ready. If you got to be afraid that this thing may manifest in your worst nightmare, your worst fear, then you don't know your own fear yet. There's too many things. There's too many child parts in there that are too scared of what's going to come through that door. Because in the past, when something came through that door, it meant pain and suffering. You need to get rid of that first. Because when you are feeling safe inside yourself and you know that things can't get inside you, and let's put that on top of it. We're already thinking that people can get inside. We also think that spirits can get inside. So again, it's like, why would you send somebody into that lion's den? Why would you send somebody to Belial as their first spirit to work with? Lilith is okay. Lilith is wonderful because she's a demonic spirit, but she's also a very, very high-held goddess of witchcraft. And you can find her on the right-hand path and follow her right into the left-hand path. And what's the difference? The right-hand path is about discipline. It's about restriction. It's about patience. It's about taking your time, right? And the discipline part of it is the biggest thing. That's why it's so restrictive. It's meant to be that way. The left-hand path is wide open. It is balls to the wall.
Yeah.
They will throw you enough rope to do whatever the fuck you want. And that's the beauty. And the left-hand path is definitely a lot faster. It is straight to the point, where the right-hand path takes a lot of twists and turns and stuff. But some people need that.
Yeah. So, like, what I was going to add to that, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I agree, like, wholeheartedly. Like, people need to kind of, figure some of the stuff out on their own and define their own path. And, it's one of the things I find I have to do is also, you end up with two types of people. I don't know where to go or where to start. And then you end up with people who, and I try to put myself in the shoes that I'm not 48. I didn't have to go through the analog discovery of witchcraft and how to do shit. And try to think, like, if I was 24 years old right now and just discovering all this and watching YouTube channels and trying to figure stuff out, like, I mean, it's daunting how many resources are out there and how credible some of them are and whatnot. But I find a lot of times people are so married to how things are in a book. It's like, well, I have to do the Goetic invocations exactly as the Goetic invocations are in the book. And I can't deviate from that. And, and what I'm trying to do is get people comfortable with, get this, building a practice that's completely your own. I'm like, you can use these things to help you and guide you. And like, I very rarely use anything as far as a standard ritual setup. Like, most of the time, I'm just like, I just do everything extemporaneously. I don't use incantations from anything. I don't use a lot of, canned spells and rituals that other people did, because I've built a practice and adapted it towards me and my needs. And like, one of the things I started working on my channel is building out an accessibility magic series for people who, like me, who are neurodivergent, who are autistic or ADHD, who have chronic pain, mobility issues, all those things, because you're going to have to adapt your practices around those things. And, I can't, like, I sat on the floor to do a ritual for half an hour last week, and I ruined my entire life as a result, just from sitting on a floor pillow for half an hour. When you have chronic pain and joint issues and things like that, that does limit the physicality of things that you can do in your rituals. So you might be a little more reliant on doing things through astral travel or through the astral realm, or through meditation or channeling or mediumship or anything of that nature. They're all valid approaches, but it's like, what I'm trying to get people to understand is, figure out what works for you. Like, The Goetia is a great book. I don't think I've ever once done a single Goetic, ritual that's in the book. Will I ever? I don't know. It just doesn't speak to me as a way to work with spirits.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the nice thing about witchcraft, right? Is it's unique to everybody, like, individually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a wrong way to do it or a right way to do it. And I think when you find things that work for yourself, that's the best. And yeah, and to regards to what you're saying, I've looked at the Ars Goetia a wee bit. I would never recommend, like, summoning a demon and threatening them with blasting rods in the name of God. But,
right.
Some people do that and it works for them. Do I find it disrespectful and, like, disgusting? Yes. It's not something I would do, but if that's your thing and you're happy with it, like, who am I to judge,
Yeah, there's two really good books that I read recently that looks like we lost Mel. Hopefully we're still here, but that were not really specific in any particular practice of witchcraft, but were really helpful if you wanted to just figure out how to make your practice that your own. And The first one was Weave the Liminal by Laura Tempest Zakroff, which was really good. And they talk about navigating different occult spaces, different types of practices, different types of magic, and just how to find your own place with that. And the other one was called Rebel Witchcraft, Carving a Practice or of Your Own by Kellyanne Maddox. She has a really big YouTube channel and stuff, but like both were really good. Like if I was going to say, if someone came to me wanting to, like, I don't know where to start, what to do, what direction to take, I would say those would probably be the two books I would recommend for that. Because even as far as into the, practice that I am, I found those books beneficial to read. I'm like, wow, I wish I read these a really long time ago, but they also weren't published a really long time ago. So
yeah, that's why I like the black art so much, because that was one of the first books that I read, and I mean, it literally went into like every aspect of witchcraft. I mean, tarot, numerology, alchemy, like all of it,
Okay, so my mic went out. Oops.
Oh,
And-
we were just
Right
talking
now.
about you.
Oh no,
thought you were
I
just
saw.
being silent.
I mean, I was letting you speak, but I was.
Oh, you went out again.
Are you kidding me? The mic went out again?
You went out again.
Poor Melvin.
I always like there's these 3 books that I've always really enjoyed, and they're called Green Witchcraft. And I think her name was like Anna Mora. I can't remember. I've seen them for a while because I haven't put my books away yet. But Green Witchcraft is that's the one I always liked to give people. If they're into woods, if they feel like they're an earthy type of person,
Yeah, like I read a lot, so like I like on average, despite running a business and all that, I still manage to read like about 50 some books a year. Whether they are ebooks or physical books or audiobooks or stuff like that. Like I'm always digesting something new, and and my focuses will shift from time to time on what I'm learning, but it's like always keep learning, always keep reading. Don't assume you know everything. And like whether or not, I guess the when it comes to reading and when it comes to books and when it comes to watching people's YouTube channels and live streams and stuff, like I go to I think it comes from the, like, if you do any kind of 12-step fellowship stuff, it's like, well, take what works for you and leave the rest. So even if there's just one little nugget of knowledge that comes from someone's video or a book or something, or you're like, I agree with most of this except for this part, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Am I back now?
Yes.
Okay. So, real quick, I want to say hello to everyone who has joined us. Oh boy, a lot of names. Ghost Rider, Harley, Dragon Dancer, Simona, Morningstar, welcome, and Shay, welcome. Thank you guys for hanging out with. And Ziggy, hello Ziggy. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on Not Quite Ladies Night because unfortunately Neima stuff came up and I'm having catastrophic tech issues. So now going back to something real quick. Fear is interesting. I think we need it because that's how we learn in a very odd way. Because, like if you don't have any type of fear, you're going to probably do something really stupid at times, like jump off a cliff, which some people do for fun and they're crazy.
Or go drop down to the Titanic in a sub.
There's that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like for me, like sometimes I wonder, like being autistic, late diagnosed autistic, like did I not get the file download for like understanding and applying human fear? Because like sometimes for me, like I feel like there's just files missing in my. I'm like, well, I gotta pretend to be human. So okay, if those people are acting afraid of that thing, so I'm gonna act afraid of that thing too, even though I'm not necessarily processing the emotion of it.
I think you should just observe that you don't feel fear as much as you feel as other people might. right? Or you don't express it in the same way.
Yeah,
or,
like I literally, like I never could figure out like why. Like anytime I've ever been on a roller coaster or thrill ride in my entire life, I just sit there like this.
Yeah, you process.
Like there's like I'm just taking in the experience. I don't have to be like screaming.
and you process it
You
differently.
process
So
differently.
I process things very differently. So I think sometimes going back to kind of what you were talking about earlier, Scarlett, with like, okay, they're not your buddies and your pals, and how that there's fear, but they also kind of meet you where you're at and on the functional wavelength that you are. So I think that for me, when I've worked with Belial, I think a lot of times I see like I think they get my sense of humor in some way, or how I like for me what I think is funny or something. So that's why Belial like shows up in a different costume every time.
Sure.
And it's not to say some of his costumes haven't been scary or whatever.
And I'm not saying he, manifests for anybody. He manifests for everybody in their own way, right? Everybody in their own way.
Yeah, and
sometimes I get the alien Dr. Belial. Sometimes, I get him being the Thing. Someone I know, he came forth as the poop emoji.
oh, that's
awesome.
different.
Well, it's sometimes though, like I think it's, and maybe this is just my journey in it, is like I look at it a lot of times where we're doing these rituals and we're doing these spells and we're communicating with these spirits and asking them for things and building these relationships and trying to get them to help us become better. And then sometimes I'm like, hey guys, how's your day going? What's up down here? Like, I'm just here to hang.
Well,
it's not to say like, being a pal, but also kind of like.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you don't, but like I said before, you develop relationships with them over time, and but still, even that should never be taken you should never be complacent with the relationship, is what I mean, right? You stay alert, stay alive, basically. Don't ever
going to be teaching
your niceness as a weakness or for granted.
Yeah, they're going to teach you lessons, and sometimes you are going to fall on your face and fall on your face hard.
If you underestimate them, then they will remind you. That's all I'm trying to give that warning.
And
Absolutely.
then I would also say respect goes a long way, which is something folks in the West, we struggle with. We try to command and demand, and that's an issue. If you want to be respected, you got to give respect. It's simple as that. And I think another thing is too, it's a lot of influence that's on us that tells us, oh, you have to do it this way or this happens. Or like Jennifer said earlier, if you're young in your 20s or teens and you're seeing this and you come across a quote unquote influencer and you don't know any better, you listen to them and you try it on your own, and then mess happens. Common sense, people. Common sense. I think that plays a part into certain things, as well as going back to the fear plays a part in it. But you also have to challenge yourself to overcome certain things, because that's how we grow. We grow from challenge. And I'm going on a little tangent here. I got to make up for lost time. And then saying that, we also have to understand that it's no one size fits all. And I think that's where people make a huge mistake. Just because it works for you doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for me, or you see it this way, but it works better this way for me. A good example of this would be when I used to go to school. This sounds weird. I said this before. Of all things, an anime taught me more about myself than most teachers could. And that is, I can't be taught. And because I can't be taught, I can't exactly teach in a traditional way. When I was in school, like, teachers never explained things in a way where I could understand it. It was always weird and just like, I don't get it. I don't know what you're talking about. And I would get bored, annoyed, and like, I'm done. Just leave me alone. And once I got into independent study, I taught myself. And it's like, well, how do you like that? I can learn on my own. Whereas someone else, they can't learn on their own. They might need that mentor. They might need someone to just help give them a push. Going back to what was being said earlier, I mean, yes, we should do it on our own because we have to develop this relationship. We have to develop confidence, but sometimes you do need a push, and you need that bat signal. And just to give you an idea, it's just also remember you're an individual. You don't have to do everything exactly. If you have an interest in something else, look at it, go out and learn. And sometimes, deity, spirit, whatever we want to call it, entities, they might come to you because they take an interest in you for whatever reason, which happened to me several times. And I have no idea why. I don't do anything. I just, talk about the stuff. I don't practice. I mean, I pull some tarot cards. That's about it. Uh, and that's something that might help someone learn and become interested. Like, oh, wow, okay. I don't know who you are, but I'm interested. Let me learn about this. And then going to the left hand path and right hand path thing, I think a good way of viewing it is like the Force with Star Wars. You have the Sith or the Dark Jedi, and you have, of course, the light side of the Force, the Jedi, and the dark side of the Force. So, what I'm getting at is this: the light side is a bit more traditional, a bit more organized, follow this path. And sometimes you put limitations on yourself. Whereas the dark side of the Force we can sort of view as the left hand path. It's not necessarily a free for all. It's not saying that there's no organization, but there are no limits that you place on yourself. You are going to be daring, you're going to be challenging, and yeah, sometimes it backfires. You get kicked in the butt, but you keep going, you learn from that, and you don't limit yourself. All comes from the same place, just different ways of doing it. Maybe one has a bit more structure and limitation, whereas the other is a bit less structure and no
Chaos
limitations.
magic.
Yeah. So there we go.
Well,
I will hush
but
now.
I mean, just to add on to that, like, I like the conversation we've been having, but I think it's important too to like state that, like, Belial isn't just this scary being who's gonna whoop your ass. Like, I've been working with him for 5 years. Did I have my moments with him? Yes. But there was goals like I wanted to reach, like I wanted to pursue art. I started painting. I got really good at it. I've been published like a lot now. I'm working on your book, Melvin.
Oh,
Like,
people weren't supposed to know that yet.
well, sorry, it's happening. So, um, I was in a career that was like really toxic and not healthy, and I didn't want to let go of it. And I finally just got to the point now to where like I know that that's no longer a thing. I have a new career. It doesn't pay as much, but I'm happy. And like the people that he's placed in my life, like that money difference doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's scary, you know what I'm saying? But like at the same time, like I don't want people to like see this and go, "Oh my gosh, I can't touch that spirit." Like I think it's important to know, like, yeah, it's a lot, but if you're willing to put the work into it, like you honor him and it's an even exchange, like it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Belial is one of the four kings that Four Thrones works with. He's one of the main elements in the South.
yeah,
And
so
you look,
Belial, he's the king of Earth, right? And, this is how I see it then with him. On Earth, we have, of course, a lot of beauty, but a lot of destruction. And beauty can come from destruction. A volcano erupts, burns everything down, but what's left is a mineral gold mine, and things
Mhm.
can grow back in a great fashion. So we could kind of see Belial very much like Earth. It can be rough, it can be dangerous, but it has a beauty to it as well if you put in that work to see it and nurture, grow it, just like
Yeah.
growing a relationship.
You have to understand, like, or people have to understand, sort of like, okay, so water. You need water to live. Too much water can kill you. Not enough water can kill you. It's about the balance of things. And I think kind of taking a more non-dualistic approach when you look at them as neither, good nor evil, like when you think of those sort of, binary dichotomies that we put a lot of things into, that's all part of the same kind of energy current. And that's sort of, a little bit more how I've been shifting my perspective and how I look at things. And to touch upon what you were saying before, Mel, was like, we were talking about how like sometimes when spirits come to you, I just spent the past like month going the rabbit hole. I have like an entire like file box full of journals that I wrote from about 1990 to about 2001 because I'm analog old, y'all.
I saw when you posted that. That was great.
And it was so fascinating looking like how long some of these spirits have been with me, but I just didn't know. Like I found so many things like Lucifer and Abaddon have been with me since I was like 14 or 15 or something. Yeah. And there was one reference I found, like even the Santa Muerte from like 25 years ago. I don't even think I knew who Santa Muerte was then, but the way described this being that like appeared in my room in this vision, like that was her. And the interactions that I had with these entities back then and not knowing what they were, or and feeling this, literally there was this so much of what I wrote was kind of this push and pull back and forth between sort of like the angelic and the demonic, and like and it was with me at such a young age. I just didn't know what it was like. And it's not necessarily now that I'm projecting these things on, because what they did was they reminded me like, hey, because I had looked at most of these books in decades at this point. And I think when I first started working with Lucifer, he was kind of like, yeah, I've been around for a while, and kind of, like pointed back to things I wrote that I had long forgotten. And same thing like with Abaddon, like the way I described Abaddon was like so like how that like other people now are described, have described Abaddon.
Yeah, I mean that's the funny thing about it though, is like a lot of times, like you said, these spirits have been here before we, like they were interacting with us and we didn't know what was going on at the time. And then it's kind of beautiful the way that works, like years later on down the road, like once you get the knowledge and you're like, cool, like whoa. And it's such a beautiful experience. Like when I realized like that was Belial, I was like, what? It was so beautiful. Like,
so exciting. I love it.
When Belial came to you when you were like kind of in that fever dream when you were sick in LA, I had a very similar experience. Like I wasn't practicing or anything at the time. And this was probably about like early 2015. I'd had surgery and then got the flu. So I had the wonderful confluence of fever dreams from the flu and opioid dreams. And I just ended up in this like demonic underworld thing, because a lot of times that's how they would come to me, would be when I would be in like a vulnerable state like that.
Yeah.
And, it's like in this dream, it's like they were like, revealed that I was like some kind of like ruling class demon or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this was just a weird dream. I think I wrote about it on Facebook. Like, wow, I had the craziest dream last night.
Yeah.
And then years later, when I first started working with Lilith, she pointed back to that dream. And I was just like, okay. But like, I find that I just go down these weird rabbit holes. Like all this stuff has kind of always been here. I'm just now starting to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And they're kind of, it's been like that the gif and the meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Charlie's got the Pepe Silva thing and all the like strings on the wall and all the pictures and the letters. Yeah. It's like I feel like every week for me looks like that, in like some weird holy shit moment of like self-discovery.
Yeah. I agree. It's like fascinating, because it's like, for me, it's just like when I got into witchcraft, I wanted it to be real. Like, you know, like when I first got into it, I'm like, all right, I'm probably crazy. And then I had my first experience and I was like, it's fucking real. I'm not crazy. You know, so it's cool, you know, because like I grew up in like a very, very like Christian household. And like my mom told me like demons and the devil were real, you know. But I was
school, you know.
Yeah, I was completely like atheist, and then I switched from that to agnostic, and then I found witchcraft, and I was like, okay.
So here's one for you specifically, Scarlett.
Okay.
Did you say uh-oh? Like,
No, I said okay.
oh, why are people so crazy in this community?
Because trauma is a glass ceiling, and that's my motto, right?
Yeah.
Trauma is a glass ceiling, and anybody who works with me will know. You know, we talk about that all the time. You know, when we look at other people and try to figure out why they behaved a certain way, because trauma is a glass ceiling. You know, when you hold on to things and look for an answer in some place like witchcraft, you know, that's one of the reasons why I tell them to do the right hand path first, because right hand path is structure. A lot of people are already coming out of chaos, coming out of homes that are chaotic, coming out of their lives that are chaotic. You need structure. And what that part of the learning does for you is it gives you a framework to go by. It gives you a framework to measure a baseline, and it gives you a framework to measure your progress. And, you know, without that structure, if you go right into the left, it's all practical stuff. It's all the practical stuff that you've learned. The left-hand path is about practicality and putting it into practice. You know, it's like med school, like you got pre-med, right? It's your introduction. People are talking about it. Maybe you go to a festival or something. You start looking at crystals. You start playing with Ouija board, whatever. And then you go to school, right? You go to 4 years of medical school. You get 2 years of theory, and then you get 3 and 4 years, which is all of your clinical rotation stuff. And then after that, you graduate with your doctorate degree. You graduate with a doctorate of medicine. And then you do your residency for 4 years where you put it into practicality. Everything that you've learned from that structure, you apply it. And that's how I look at the right and the left-hand path. If somebody doesn't have structure going into the left-hand path, well, they're sure as shit not going to find structure there, because that's not what it's about. So why are so many people, I wouldn't use the word crazy, but why are they so unsettled maybe inside, which is making them feel like they have to explode or react in a way? It's because they don't have any structure.
That's a good point.
I also think too, like the left-hand path, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but you know, when you look at the left-hand path community, you see a lot of like statuses and posts about like my conversation with Lucifer, or you know, my conversation with Lilith and Belial and Asmodeus and all that stuff. And you know, I think a lot of times it might be an easy excuse for people to excuse like maybe schizophrenia. Because like I know like you can hear spirit voices. I know that's a thing. But for me personally, like I get most of my communication with them like via dreams, you know, like dream communications and stuff. Like, so I think that's another factor too, unfortunately. It's like you can kind of disguise your mental illness in a community to where it's accepted.
You definitely could, and I've seen that happen a whole lot.
Yeah.
And you'll find those people burning bridges over and over and over again, like moving to different communities, right? They'll come into a community, they'll burn the bridge, and then they'll leave the community, and then they'll try to go to another community, and then they may come back every once in a while, right?
Or they're your standard one true Lucifers and Satans and Samaels and Liliths.
But when you have witchcraft that's accompanied by a mental illness, you're going to see some of those other symptoms too. So like schizophrenia, you'll see delusional behavior. You'll see some type of delusional disorder or something like that. Bipolar, you'll notice these, you'll recognize a manic episode, right? But so, yeah, you're correct. It does hide it for a little while, right? And a lot of traumatized people come to this too, right? Because there's a lot of unregulated power. I mean, you pick up a book that teaches you how to do a spell, and that's empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, a lot of people are looking for a way to gain power without having to be out in the open or having to fight somebody physically or to throw words. You can go home, you can like burn a candle, you can express yourself in a way and hope that your God and your goddess are going to protect you, right? And so when that starts to happen, then you build this relationship with your God and your goddess, and then it goes into the healing aspect possibly. But
Yeah.
with the left-hand path, you don't have that, right? You're asking a demonic figure. You're inviting this type of force into your life, and you're already unstructured. What do you think that Belial's going to give you structure?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, like most mentally sane people aren't going to want to communicate with the demon. And to what you were saying earlier, I came to them out of like trauma. Like I wanted to heal that trauma. So it's usually damaged people who have been like ostracized by, the constructs of Christianity to where like, okay, well, I can't go to the church because I don't resonate with that. So let me try this, and it's a great solution. It's an amazing solution,
Absolutely.
but you really, really have to give it your all, and you have to stay respectful. You have to learn from your mistakes,
Yeah, I have two things that I wanted to add to that, and hopefully I remember both of them. When it comes to sort of the delusional thing, like I'm speaking from my own personal experiences, like, because I was having a conversation about this multiple times and really thinking about it. And I've talked to other people about it. It's like when you're having a psychotic break or when you are delusional or at least, for me, or if I've dissociated or something, I am not going to remember any of it to tell you about it in detail. Yeah. I'm just going to wake up in a pile of glass bleeding like, what the fuck just happened? Not like, oh, I was communing with Belial and yakety schmackety and all this stuff happened. I'm just going to be like, what the was that and what's going on? Like, you're going to be detached from it in a way. And that's kind of, for me at least, how I can differentiate the real from what could possibly be something having to be trauma or mental illness related in that sense. And the other part of it is to kind of answer the broad question of why the left-hand path is a hot show a lot of times. It's not just the left-hand path. I think it's the entire world we live in. And what I've been trying to point out recently, and I kind of got into about this on Facebook, because a lot of the pearl clutching people are like, oh my God, how can you post these memes or laugh at these memes about the poor people who the poor billionaires in that sub that all died. And it's like, okay, look, let's look at the past 3 years on this planet. Everyone at this point in time has some form of probably most people have some form of generalized PTSD just from gestures around at the past 3 years we have lived through. So there's a lot of undiagnosed, even unacknowledged. And in that, because I can speak from my own maladaptive coping skills from complex PTSD and trauma, is that sometimes things come out in those ways. Like I related it to a story because I used to work in hospitals 20 some years ago at this point. And we were taking care of this patient who had a gunshot, I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, wound to the head and survived, but obviously had a traumatic brain injury. They, went septic, spiked a massive fever, and they were delirious. They were trying to pull everything out, and we were trying to get them on cooling blankets. And suddenly, one by one, I noticed everyone started staring at me. Why? Because I was standing there laughing. It's not that I thought it was funny. It's not that I thought his suffering was funny. It just was a coping mechanism misfire So it's sometimes when people get really judged about things, and I will be the first to admit I can be a little judgy pants sometimes. But like, when we're looking at coping mechanisms for things, they may not make sense to people. Like I sometimes will get to a point where I get that emotional overwhelm where I'm like, okay, what's my line here? I could laugh, I could cry, I could scream, I could, break stuff, I could I'm just gonna stand here and laugh. Because somehow that makes sense to me. So it's sometimes when I'm looking at what's going on, I have to take a step back from being judgy pants about it, because I can do that very easily. But it's also being protective of myself. Like I had to get away from the hardcore drug using aspect of some of the people on the left-hand path, because it was re-traumatizing me in a way. Like, call me when you're 6 months sober and in a 12-step program and making amends. Till then, done.
Maybe people are just looking for a solution, and they just come in and it's unstructured or whatever it is, and this.
But you're just getting a lot of maladaptive coping mechanisms and trauma responses.
But I mean, in a sense, I think the unstructuredness of the left-hand path is also an important aspect, because it's a solitary path and it's not supposed to be easy. Like I don't practice with other people. It's very far in between if like I feel comfortable doing a ritual with somebody. If you need structure, then I don't think the left-hand path is for you. Like you have really structure,
You can get, like, for me, being autistic and ADHD, my autistic side loves structure and organizational hierarchies and like everything. There's a place for everything and everything in its place. But my ADHD side is very chaotic and unstructured.
Yeah.
So I would say if you want to balance those two things within the left-hand path, you need to find something structural and build that structure into the left-hand path and into practices. Whether like for me, learning, becoming a Reiki master and working with crystal healing and stuff like that. Some of that stuff gave me the structural framework to really enhance my practice a lot more.
The left-hand path is practical. It's not structured. It's practical. Which means that you are dynamically moving through it.
Right.
You're actually walking and doing the path. You're learning as you go, basically, right? It's practical. And for some people, I don't think it's the right avenue. I don't think it's not for me to say if it's the right avenue or not, but I will say if you go the left-hand path to try to help you kind of find yourself and do the shadow work and everything, it's going to be a lot more chaotic, obviously, than it is if you were to go have structure and on the lighter side of the path into the darker aspects. But like you said, Kayla, you're correct. You're absolutely. That's some people's journey. Some people's journey is the chaos. The chaos is what they need to learn, and they need to learn how to navigate in that chaos. So again, as I sit here in the beginning, getting all overly emotional in the river. Oh, why are they not doing it this way, right? But when I see it, it's because I don't want people to get mentally fucked up, like psychologically fucked up. Yeah. Where this path can be so enlightening and can be so beneficial. But again, it's not for me to say who's who, because some people are extremely chaotic, and that's the only way that they can learn.
Like I never thought about it.
And they've got to survive out of it. That's that pressure, right?
I mentioned it now. Like I never thought of the left-hand path or anything in terms of like structured and unstructured. It just
I don't know how you can. I mean, in like learn to meditate, learn to do this, make your tools, look at these, do the ritual this way, say these words. This is the goddess. This is what they do. This is what she does, right? But when you get in the left-hand path, it's like manifest this demon, and light the sigil up with your mind or whatever, flash the sigil, blah 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 blah. And people kind of like, I don't know what any of that means. So it's like figure it out yourself. That's the difference, right?
Yeah. You either it's hard to figure it out yourself, but it's possible. It's
I guess maybe I've just
when you do, and when you do, you gain this level of just trust in the self. You're like, holy shit, I can change things, right? So the change from the left-hand path is much bigger and profound because it's unbridled. But in the right-hand path, some people need a gentleness. Some people need that time. People like to jump in the fire, and that's okay too.
Yeah, see, I've always been, and I've talked about this on my channel, like since the beginning, like I'm always like finding the balance in the dark, between the dark and the light. Like I'm always like taking a balanced approach to, whether it's structured or chaotic or structured or unstructured, that there are things for me that are very structured because I've educated myself as such. Or I've taken the initiative to learn a thing and learn because I'm just a gigantic nerd for learning things and learning new things and learning and this is one of the neurospicy superpowers is you must learn all the things. You don't just buy one crystal book, you buy all the crystal books, even though half of them say the same things. You watch all the videos, you just really immerse yourself in that so that you somehow structure the chaos in a way.
And that's your journey, Jen. That's your journey. And everyone's is going to be different, right, Kayla? Right, Melvin?
Yeah, no, 100%. But I think this is like a really good talk too. So I'm enjoying like hearing everybody's different perspectives and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're always going to come up. Like, I mean, like the structured thing. Like, I just really never thought about it in those terms, and now I'm like, that's interesting. Now I have a whole different framework to look at this through, and kind of analyze my practice, and also with
sometimes the chaos is the structure.
Yeah, or it's
that's what we were saying before.
Being able to kind of harness chaos in a way, which is for working on the left-hand path, especially if you're doing any kind of chaos magic too. That's definitely not a bad thing. Because I can't say my life or my world has ever not been completely chaotic. So,
so somebody's saying, no one is saying how they benefit. I'll tell you how I benefited because the demonic.
Where are the
demonics will give you the demonics work that you do with them will come so much more faster if you can handle the intensity. Then the work and the work will complete faster. The path work is complete faster. There's a severe learning curve that is taken out of the situation when you do the left-hand path because it falls to the wall.
Yeah.
But if you go the different route, you could do a slower route, which is what people call the right-hand path, which has a lot more to do with structure. And it takes a little bit more time because you've got procedures to do, right? So that's how the demonic benefit. And not everybody benefits from demonic contact. Only, there's only certain people that work in alliance with that can handle that type of intensity. So that's why people pay for ritual work.
Yeah, I mean, it's what was I just gonna say?
How you benefited from demonic contact?
How did I benefit? Well, it's
for Kayla.
Yeah, I'm over a week off my Adderall, so my brain, like my train of thought is derailing quite often.
I can answer if you want to take a moment to think.
Yeah, it's gone. I don't remember.
Okay.
If I interject, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember it now.
I won't be offended. No, I think for me, I mean, it's mainly just been like getting comfortable in my skin, like really getting to know like the inner me, like separating my identity from the bad things that I did in my past to using that and like channeling it to like learn and become a better person, and like I've made a lot of like lifestyle changes. I've asked for career changes. I've gotten that. I've asked for artistic success. I've gotten that. And I think too, like, achieving those things, it's also my responsibility to like praise that spirit, devote to them as well. But that's another thing too that I think is important for people to know. Like, you'll ask for things, but it's never going to come to you in the way you expect it. Like it's gonna feel like a tower moment, like, oh crap, I just got fired, or my HOA sucks and I want to break my lease and now I'm moving to Maine. Like it just takes you on like this insane path, and it's like you don't know where you're going to end up, but where you end up at is exactly where you need to be. And it's enlightening because like once you reach there, like you're going to be somewhere else, but it's still going to be for the better. So
I did remember what I was going to say. I think it was something that Scarlett said that triggered the thing, but it's also too like a lot of things. Like I get these questions, and it's like it's not Pokemon Go. You don't have to collect them all. Like I build relationships, long relationships with the entities that I work with. Do I need to keep adding to that as I'm going on? Or do I just develop like, I think earlier you were saying something about oranges or something, like, why would you go to this, thing when their specialty is oranges for oranges? But I found recently, even in working with Abaddon, that, it's like a lot of my previous workings with Abaddon were more focused on like baneful magic or the destructive elements, and realizing like how much, and I was talking to another practitioner about this, that like Abaddon is also really amazing to work with for like shadow work and like shadow healing stuff. And so I've been doing a lot of work there, and going to what Kayla was saying, in that, in the, demons also work in mysterious ways. But like one of the things Abaddon is helping me with is, and it kind of came in that sort of, we help those who help themselves. If you're not willing to do the mundane grunt work and you're just coming and asking them for things and doing the rituals, you're less likely to sometimes see results in that sense. And like, there's been 2 occasions recently in working with Abaddon that like the mundane, like imagine just a piece of paper floating down from the sky and landing there going, so the solution was here all along. I just was not I wasn't paying attention to it. And like with the 2 examples I can give with that, like with my autistic sensory processing issues, like I live in a hood, so it's loud. I've always got people, going by with subwoofer bass and music or on the porch, and a lot of it or street fireworks, because we're now in the loud season. And there were a couple things that Abaddon did that pointed me in the mundane solutions to, that I'm like trying to figure out what to do. And Sam's, opening up a void to eat my entire neighborhood so I could get some peace and quiet, and I started Googling a little bit about like, I'm like, well, how do people treat sensory processing issues? And stuff like that, like, because I know there's not really
Kayla, that pops up where everyone can see it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm not good at technology, so
I haven't it. But but Googling it, and it was funny because what I happened to look at were some of like the natural treatments for dealing with sensory processing issues, and the first 2 things on there were, and it was like the homeopathic stuff, but it's like the 2 herbs that were really good for helping with sensory processing issues: belladonna and datura stramonium. I'm like, you mean to tell me that I've been sitting on pounds of the solution this entire time? And just looking at all these different things, and also realizing that like while my Adderall helps me focus on things, it was also making me hyper focus on the sensory issues. So, and there's been a bunch of other things that is just kind of, the truth points to itself. Like I had some medical bills, and I'm like been kvetching about that and appealing them, and I got my billing statement. I'm like, there's a little thing here. It says need financial assistance, which I've gotten dozens of medical bills before, never once noticed it, suddenly noticed it. It's like, I feel like they're helping point me in the right direction sometimes without me necessarily needing to sit down and petition them and do rituals and do magic and do all that stuff for it.
Okay, so we're gonna start wrapping up. I didn't want to go too long. I know two of you are on the East Coast, so should be on the West where it's the best, of course. But
Team East for days.
yeah, you go ahead and take your snowstorms and the hurricanes and the
will.
Yeah,
rain.
our thunderstorm just started, so
Yeah,
I
forget
will
that.
take my snow.
Give me sunshine. I'm
No.
cool. But Harley asks, why take the risk? And that's an interesting question because it's a few different ways of looking at it. Life is a risk, regardless. Getting up out of bed, you could trip, crack your head on the side of the door or something. It also depends on the person. Sometimes people are daring. They want to know about the unknown. They don't care about the consequences. You just want to know. You have that curiosity. Not everyone has that. Me, myself, I'm curious to a degree. Like I say all the time, I talk about this stuff. I don't practice it. And, nothing wrong with that. I like knowledge. And that's how you have to look at it. It's not a risk to some people where it's a risk to others. This is life. Life's a risk, but then it isn't. Oh gosh, that sounds confusing, doesn't it? But oh well, someone will get it. Now, real quick, we're gonna go into our final little thing here because, like, I had a buttload of topics, but I'm happy I didn't actually have to get to them because you ladies are awesome and you know how to yap. So,
I'll have to come back again.
Yeah.
so uh, yeah, we are gonna have to have a part two. Hopefully, though, it will be a true ladies' night. But what I want to know is divination. As you guys know, I do the cartomancy and all that jazz. I pulled cards for all of you at one point. You're all nuts, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
But how do you guys approach divination? Jennifer, I know you have oracle cards that you'll pull out and all that, but is that the only thing that you do?
No, I mean I do a lot of direct channeling. I found that after I started doing Reiki, just dropped my phone. It really enhanced my psychic abilities to channel. Like a lot of times, like Kayla was talking about how when a lot of her spirit communication comes through dreams, like for me, a lot of it, well, I could just be sitting here and get like a download. Like I had a client that was doing some divination for, like, in channeling for. I just sat down at my desk to do something entirely different, and no, the spirits were just like, nope, here's exactly what you need to talk about. What you need to say to this person, what we're saying to you, our message, what they need to do in this situation. And I wasn't planning on it. It just kind of happened. So, but I get a lot. I do also get messages, in dream states. Even when I've done, for a while, I was doing medical ketamine treatments for treatment-resistant depression, and like even that has a spiritual aspect to it. That, like, there were times, like the first time I did it, I ended up in like the Temple of Anubis or something. I'm like, well, this is interesting. But certain messages and stuff had come through at that point in time, through some of those altered states. So I mean, for me, I don't really do tarot as much, but as Bonnie says, that's because I'm just not. I'm always in that imposter syndrome thing. I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, even though I do, but like I don't believe I do. So, but yeah, mostly direct channeling at this point.
Okay, Kayla, what about you?
I don't really do much tarot. Like I'll pull for myself like now and again.
Well,
That's not like my biggest skill set.
yeah,
Like
not necessarily tarot, but just divination in general.
yeah, like I mean what I'll do is like I have like a little dream journal and that helps me like remember my dreams and stuff like that. So when I wake up, I'm able to write it down. And sometimes I'm able to decipher messages by even just looking up like, oh, hey, I saw a pelican in my dream. And then I look up what a pelican means like spiritually. And I'm like, oh, that aligns up to like what's going on in my life right now. So another thing that happens to me too is like the ringing of the ears. this is like very like white magic-y, but like I'll look up like the time, the angel number, and see what the message is, and it typically aligns. So
Angel numbers are so interesting to me.
I get the ringing in the ears too. Like after I think my level 2 Reiki attunements,
yeah.
it was just blasting for like weeks on end. Like it was just so loud.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love numerology. Like it's a very fascinating like science to me, and it's something that I want to look into and like level up a bit more in because I love it.
Too much math for my taste, but hey, more power to you. Scarlett, what about you and your divination, or how do you receive messages?
Dreams sometimes, direct communication a lot of the time. Omens are always coming in my way and coming in different ways. Omens everywhere. Sometimes I'll pull cards. Sometimes, sometimes Nate and I will play with the Ouija board, right? We love doing that. Nate is really, really good at that. He does that by himself. Cards a lot too, like tarot cards. But I don't like pulling them for myself. I don't particularly care for that. I'll do it sometimes, but I don't like doing it all the time. But if I need information, sometimes I will do a tarot reading.
Yeah.
So,
I'm the same. I don't pull cards for myself at
yeah,
all.
that's why I get others to read for me, just because, I don't know. I don't like it. I just don't like it. But I will do it sometimes. But I don't know. I mean, I guess there's so many things. And then there's, of course, there's like horoscopes, and then there's astrology, so like different systems. But yeah, it's just I guess it's a lot of different ways of communication. And what's fun is over the years, it's almost as if there's this whole communication, this whole language built between you and the spirits, and you can decipher like, oh, that was a sign, like that was an omen, and that wasn't. It's the embodiment of that communication is what really opens up for me, and it just comes in different ways.
So you just gave me an idea for a future show, which I won't be a part of. I'll just make Neima do it to make up for this. If she's listening, be prepared, Neima. I think we're going to do a spirit board show where
Yay.
folks use their spirit boards to communicate, and we'll have someone from this part of the world, someone from that part of the world, just see what happens. Kind of like an experiment.
That's what I don't do a lot of. I don't do a lot of like spirit board work. But sometimes like Bonnie and I occasionally will like hop on just like a Facebook chat with each other, and like she'll be doing something on her end divination wise, and I'll be doing something completely different. So we're kind of like comparing and contrasting and confirming, information. Like I'll have like either dowsing rods or a pendulum or something like that, and she'll be doing maybe tarot or something, or the spirit board.
I used to do that with a friend of mine with remote viewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. We might maybe a Halloween special. I don't know. We might do something like that. That'll be fun. I love how I say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do that." I take no part in it.
Yeah, but Melvin, you're like the best person at spirit board communication. Are you serious?
Well, I use a pendulum board, but
I know it's a spirit board.
well, yes, but I feel like I have control. That's the difference. That's the biggest thing. People have to be comfortable and feel or believe that they're in control. If you don't have that confidence, if you don't feel like you're in control or anything, things go blah. So,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I really don't do anything. I just I enjoy the stories. I enjoy hearing other people talk about this stuff. I mean, that's not to say I can't do something.
You're too hard on yourself because you're pretty psychic, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
for sure.
amount of readings you've given me with that pendulum board, stop it.
You're very gifted. You're very gifted, Melvin. Your readings are always
on point.
I love it. Yes, every single time.
Well,
When I see you on there, I never ever, when you think, Carly, you are a yes. It's always yes every time.
Okay. So, well, it's gonna be a while, and when before I do another YouTube
Oh, that's
reading,
fine.
so you gotta wait till the new mics get here. But yeah, I think this is a good spot to end it. We are definitely gonna do a follow up to this though, and I thank you guys again for joining on such short notice, dealing with my tech issues, oof. And I really appreciate sharing your knowledge with us and everything. It was just so freaking awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. So,
Yeah, so if people wanted to reach out and contact you, where would they go? Scarlett, where would they go?
Ooh, they probably could find me on Instagram. I think I'm on there still as Brainwitch666 or something like that.
Yeah. Kayla?
my name's spelled on here for people, right?
They can see it, yes.
Okay, it's a hard last name. So you can find me on Facebook at Kayla Mavrakis. I'm on Instagram at Kayla_Mavrakis_art. And if you want to buy my art or my prints, my Etsy shop is pinned on my Facebook page.
All right. And Jennifer?
All my stuff's under Belladonna's Botanicals. My YouTube channel's under my name. I may change that at some point in time because I regret having my actual name attached to things at this point. But I don't do personal. I really don't like. I keep my business and personal very separate. For the most part, learn that lesson the hard way. So yeah.
Well,
But
I have
yeah,
good news for you.
yeah. What's that?
All those links are in the description below. And Jennifer, it is your business stuff, so don't worry.
Thank you.
I got you covered. I thought ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you all who joined in, Chad, who's gonna listen in the future, and if I'm not lazy on Apple and Spotify, all that good stuff. Don't forget to follow Unexplained Possibilities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram. Send me some good luck to make it through the month without something else blowing up, please.
Oh, we
And,
all need that.
and with that said, remember, guys, there are things that go bump in the night. Go ahead and tell them hi. Bye, everybody.